Good morning, agents, and welcome to another daily episode of Targeted Loot today for Saturday, December 26th. In this series, we cover a lot. We got the Targeted Loot map, Dark Zone exclusives you could farm for, highlights from the weekly vendor resets, and of course, build and farming suggestions as well. I'm Shadow Gaming, and if you enjoy this video, consider pressing the subscribe and like buttons below. And remember to comment below if you have any questions whatsoever. Otherwise, let's get this video started. Alright guys, so starting off with the Dark Zones and vendor reset highlights, which are always in that big bottom left overlay that pops up right now. Really, all I can recommend, like I have been for the past few days, is the DZ East vendor, which has the claws out holster. And speaking of the claws out holster, that's something else you could farm for in DZ West today as well for targeted loot. So you could farm for it in DZ West today, or you could buy it at the DZ East vendor for 152 DZ resources. Otherwise, for other holsters, you got the Waveform, the Imperial Dynasty holster, and then of course the Dodge City holster for your exotics. And then the other one would be the Forge holster with 50% extra shield health, which is equivalent to an entire skill tier with a shield health to your shield. Next up in DZ South, we got Hana U. Now remember, there's no Dark Zone exclusive for Hana U in particular, but you can farm for the Force Multiplier backpack with perfect combined arms, giving you an additional 30% skill damage every 3 seconds you land a shot on an NPC or player. And you can farm for that in the DZ if you want to. Just look out for skill haste and skill damage as the rolls. And then last but not least, we got DZ East. We got Seska as the targeted loot. So what you can do is farm for the Devil's Due backpack with perfect clutch on it. Now, I don't think that backpack's very good, more of a collectible, I guess, nowadays, ever since they neutered Clutch and Berserk many title updates ago. But otherwise, now let's go check out what we got on the north side. Alright guys, over here on the north side, targeted loot highlights, starting off with Camp White Oak. We got Bellstone Armory at Camp White Oak. So this is where you can farm for that everyday carrier with perfectly efficient, which I never really use, but please comment in the comment section below if you do use it. Otherwise, there is a DZ exclusive one, the Liquid Engineer with perfect Bloodsucker, but remember, like I just said, it's a Dark Zone exclusive. You cannot farm for it outside of the Dark Zone. Next up, we got Hunter's Fury at Coney Island Amusement Park. I will put my favorite Hunter's Fury build in the top right card now. That is 4 pieces of Hunter's Fury, the Death Grip gloves with 10% armor on kill that you could have farmed for yesterday, and I hope a lot of you guys managed to get one. And then, of course, the Memento backpack. Next up, we got rifles at Manning National Zoo. 2 exotic rifles you could farm for, the Merciless and the Diamondback, both of which I don't really necessarily recommend. The Diamondback has a low magazine count, but it does hit hard in PvE and PvP. And the Merciless is pretty great and all, but you need braced and some weapon handling usually just to deal with it even on PC. What I would recommend is some named rifles like the Baker's Dozen with perfect lucky shot and the Surge with perfect spike. Both of those are 2 named rifles worth farming for, but always remember that the Harmony with perfectly in sync is a Dark Zone exclusive, so you're gonna have to wait for one of the DZ vendors to sell it or a rifle targeted loot to farm for it. Otherwise, Kinley College is closed, and the Summit you pick your own targeted loot. So now let's go check out what we got on the west side. Alright guys, over here on the west side, targeted loot highlights. Starting off with gear sets, we got Foundry Bulwark over here at Lincoln Memorial. Now, Foundry Bulwark, remember, just like Future Initiative, the chest and backpack are Iron Horse raid exclusives. But otherwise, you could farm any other piece of them. And for Foundry Bulwark, it's an amazing tank build for sure. It's definitely worth, picking up 4 pieces, just to take an absurd amount of damage, especially on legendary and raid missions. But otherwise, I never really use it. Next up, we got Future Initiative at Potomac Event Center. That is a great healer build. Like I just said with Foundry Bulwark, the chest and backpack are raid exclusive as well to Future Initiative. But in lieu of that, what I recommend is an Alp Summit chest piece with Empathetic Resolve and another backpack piece with Safeguard on it if you do not have the chest and backpack for Future Initiative. For Negotiator's Dilemma at Foggy Bottom, I could put my double LMG build in the top right card now. You utilize the Pestilence and a Neg EV. And then, of course, 4 pieces of Negotiator's Dilemma, Grupo Sombro gloves, and, of course, the Coyotes mask. That is a great DPS and crowd control build. Last 2 we got is Eclipse Protocol over here at Bank HQ. Now, Eclipse Protocol is great for any status effect build. Definitely worth the picking up. Of course, my favorite fire damage build, 4 pieces of Eclipse Protocol, the Imperial Dynasty holster, or you could use the Vile mask, and then, of course, 1 piece of Golan gear. Now that's great for solo, group, heroic, legendary. It just sets everything on fire, and it's really great to have in a teammate. And the last thing here is Tip of the Spirit DCDHQ. I never really recommend this. I still don't like it even with the Memento backpack, so I'm going to start skipping it probably. Moving on to normal targeted loot, we got Douglas and Harding at Tidal Basin Stronghold. This is where you can farm that Punch Drunk Mask with 20% headshot damage baked into it. And of course, this is for running an all high-end headshot damage build instead of like 3 pieces of aces and eights like I usually mention. Next thing I'll mention over here is chess pieces over at Constitutional Hall. Now for chess pieces, there's 2 exotics, the Tardigrade and Ridgewaite's Pride. The Ridgewaite's Pride being something you have to complete, 5 exotic pieces and summit. Then you got to complete floor 100. Then you got to complete 2, parts of the project. So in lieu of that, just make sure to always let your teammates know what exotics you're farming for or anything you're farming for and vice versa so you guys can help each other out. Otherwise, I almost missed this. Knee pads at the Pentagon. There's 2 exotic knee pads you could farm for. That's the Ninja Bike Messenger knee pads for DPS builds and the Sawyer's knee pads for DPS builds too, but for more sitting still ones like a rifle or sniper build. Otherwise, you can farm for the Fox's pair knee pads with 8% damage to targets out of cover. Probably the best knee pads there is in this game because it's multiplicative damage for damage to targets out of cover. But of course, I would really, really rather farm Overlord ornaments if that is available as targeted loot today. Last but not least, we got shotgun targeted loot over here at West End. Now remember, there's 2 exotic shotguns now. You got the Scorpio and the Sweet Dreams exotic shotgun. Now, the Scorpio is the best. I think it overshadows the Sweet Dreams big time. I mean, it just absolutely stun locks enemies. It shreds through content with almost any build that you utilize with it. And the Sweet Dreams, you could just one-hit kill any red or purple barred enemy every 15 seconds. It's decent for skill damage builds or any type of skill build, I guess, or tank build. Otherwise, I just don't recommend it at all. Now, what I do recommend is the 3 best shotguns in the game, the Mop with 10% armor on kill, the Custom M870, and the Marine Super 90 with close and personal rolled on them. That seems to be about it. Real quick, I'll mention BTSU gloves at the White House. That's the only thing you could really farm for gloves targeted loot, unless there's Petrov. Then I would farm for the Contractor's gloves with 8% damage to armor, which is great for LMG builds, or stacking damage to armor with Walker Harris & Co., Lady Death, or assault rifles. But you could farm gloves targeted loot or Petrov for those. Otherwise, BTSU gloves are the only way to get them is to farm, gloves targeted loot. Now let's go check out the east side. All right, guys, over here on the east side, targeted loot highlights, starting off with the gear sets. We got Hardwired at Jefferson Plaza. Like I've been telling you guys, Hardwired, I think, is just dead in the water now. In lieu of that, I would just use Rigor. It actually gives you instant, cooldowns. I know it's more for deployable skills, but you'd be surprised how many skills you could utilize that with. Even the turret and drone, and you can now pick up the turret as well. Otherwise, the old best assault turret striker drone build was 3 pieces of Hardwired, 2 pieces of Hana U, 1 piece Wyvernware with kinetic momentum or glass cannon on the chest piece, and the Force Multiplier backpack with perfect combined arms, a Hana U backpack, with the assault turret striker drone build. But what I will mention is Empress at Federal Triangle. This one, first off, the 2 named items you can get with Empress is the battery pack with, I believe, perfectly calculated, and Caesar's Guard with perfectly skilled as the chest piece. Otherwise, I highly recommend my new skill damage build, 3 pieces of Empress, 2 pieces of Hana U, the Waveform, the Capacitor, the Harmony Rifle, and then, of course, Assault Turret Striker Drone on the skills. That one is the highest skill damage I could get, with kinetic momentum on the chest piece or glass cannon, or you could use the sacrifice with perfect glass cannon for the most amount of damage. Next up, we got Aces and Eights of Viewpoint Museum. Remember, 3 pieces of Aces and Eights, 2 pieces of Aralda Holding, 1 being a backpack with Vigilance or Composure. And the Chain Killer chest piece with Perfect Headhunter is a great headshot damage build. Run it with the exotic Mantis MMR, and that is going to net you around 20 million a headshot. A little bit more, actually, when fully stacked. Speaking of the Chain Killer chest piece with Perfect Headhunter, you can pick that up today at the Walker Harris & Co. targeted loot at Capitol Building Stronghold. Definitely mandatory on any headshot damage build unless you're willing to negate all that damage for braced. Otherwise, you just gotta go with Headhunter for sure. Next up, we got Providence Defense at East Mall. Speaking of the Sacrifice of Perfect Glass Cannon, that's where you could farm for that today at Air and Space Museum. And remember, Air and Space Museum is actually a very, very easy mission to run through, even on Heroic. It just seems to be a cakewalk. Next up, we got submachine guns at American History Museum. 3 exotic SMGs in this game. You got the Lady Death, you got the Chatterbox, and the Backfire exotic SMGs. Now, the Chatterbox, it's a quest-only exotic, so if you haven't seen it yet, I would check out my Chatterbox quick 5-minute video in the top right card now. Otherwise, remember that the Dark Winter and the Apartment are Dark Zone exclusives. Now, there's several ways to get it that I'll put in the bottom left overlay right now, but they're not really reliable. The most reliable way is to farm SMG targeted loot. in the dark zones. And then of course, you know, that they just don't drop from NPCs outside of the dark zone. There is other ways of getting it though that I showed before. Now of course the named SMGs that do drop in the light zone would be the Safety Distance with Perfect Outsider and the Grudge with Perfect Vindictives. Those are just the two ones that I think are definitely worth farming for. There's also like the Swap Chain, but I don't recommend it, or the Invisible Hand with Perfect Allegro as well. And really that's about it. I'll mention Strikers at Grand Washington Hotel, you know, 3 pieces for increased rate of fire and weapon handling, especially on a merciless build, but that's really all I recommend it for. And I don't think the 4 pieces, you know, does enough damage. Even if you have 100% accuracy and you're an aimbot, that's about the only real way to actually get that much damage out of it. Otherwise, I just only recommend running 3 pieces. All right, guys, let's go check out now what we got in New York City. All right, agents, finally, last but not least, we got New York City target loot highlights, and I'm going to start off with the biggest highlight, right? So we got LMGs as target loot at Wall Street. Now, of course, you probably already know this already. The 2 exotics in this game that are LMGs is the Bullet King and Pestilence. Especially if you're looking for that Bullet King, today is the day to farm for it. I mean, it already has a 3% chance to drop from the Judge or Riker's boss at the end of Wall Street in the Tombs. But then if you run it on Heroic with a 7% chance or Challenging with a 5% chance, then you're getting yourself up to 8 to 10% of a chance for that Bullet King to drop every time you run it per run. The Pestilence is also really great, and I'm sure you'll get one while you're farming for the Bullet King here, so keep that in mind as well. And you can get the damage tick to over, you know, a little under over 1 million per tick, so that one's really great as well. For named light machine guns, I would highly recommend these 4, you know, I think 4 or 5 in the bottom left overlay right now. My favorites being the Carnage with Perfect Sadist and the new Reliable Perfectly Optimized. Now here's the 2 that I was mentioning before. So you got Petrov at Liberty Island. You could farm the Contractor's Gloves with 8% damage to armor, like I mentioned over there in the North DC area. Now this is where I would farm for them. Same with Fox's Prayer knee pads with Overlord at Battery Park. You know, I always farm the brand, not the type. It yields better results. So I highly recommend farming these 2 areas for Contractor's Gloves and for Fox's Prayer knee pads respectively. Next up, Badger Tough at Financial District. You can farm that 0F's chest piece with Perfect Unbreakable. While I normally don't get too into how good that chest piece is, it really is for any DPS hybrid build. You know, it gives you so much survivability from your chest piece talent, but you give up a lot of damage from Obliterate or Intimidate. But it can be worth it. I definitely check it out. And I'll put a Title Update 10 build with Perfectly Unbreakable and the Apartment SMG in the top right card now. That might help you out with it. Next up, we got the True Patriot gear set over here at Pathway Park. True Patriot, it's another build up on the top right card now as well. You got 4 pieces of True Patriot, a Sokolov chest with Intimidate, and then of course the Memento backpack. That build is absolutely amazing. Now you can do that solo, all the way up to 4-man group, and of course Legendary Summit is where I've had success with it, as well as heroic content. It just glides right through it. I mean, this is probably the best build I've ever made in this game. Next up, we got Ongoing Directive at 2 bridges. Like I always say, there's 2 ways to build this bleed damage build, DPS build, so I'll start with the first one. The first one, you need the Ridgeway's Pride, of course, and then of course 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive. And no longer the Eclipse Protocol backpack. Do not use that alone. The System Aggravator bonus talent does not work unless you're using all 4 now. So in lieu of that, you want 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive, Ridgeway's Pride, and the Anarchist Cookbook with Perfect Wicked, or just a backpack with Perfect Wicked, maybe even Badger Tough backpack. The next one, of course, is 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive, Badger Tough backpack with Creeping Death, and the Vile Mask. Those are 2 great Ongoing Directive bleed damage builds with the Scorpio. We got assault rifles over here at Stranded Tanker. Now there's 2 exotic assault rifles. 3 in total, 1 being the Eagle Bearer. You can only farm that at the Dark Hours raid. The other 2 being the Capacitor with Capacitance as the talent, and the Chameleon with Adaptive Instincts. Both are great DPS assault rifle exotics. But of course, with the Capacitor, I'd highly recommend it on any skill damage build. It can give you all the way up at 40 stacks to 60% skill damage. And it also gives you 7.5% weapon damage per skill tier. So at skill tier 6, it's giving you 45% weapon damage and 60% skill damage. For the named assault rifles, I'd recommend the Test Subject with Perfectly in Sync, the Mechanical Animal of Future Perfection, the Burnout named FAMAS, and the Maniac named Military AKM. All 4 definitely worth farming for. And really, guys, that's about it that I could recommend. Otherwise, you know, chest pieces and backpack talents for Sokolov. You know, I always recommend Intimidate or Obliterate as the chest piece. And for the backpack, vigilance, composure, well, actually just vigilance, adrenaline rush, and my favorite, the memento backpack. Otherwise, that's all I can recommend today in New York City. Alright, agents, well, that was the targeted loot for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys had a great Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays yesterday. And of course, if you enjoyed my content, please subscribe, like, and share it. If you'd like to become a member for extra support and exclusive perks, you can click the join button below. And shout out and thank you so much to all 5 of my channel members. Everything else will be in the video description and pinned comment below, like Shadow Gaming merchandise, Storyfire, BitChute, Patreon, all the alt tech as well. Otherwise, guys, take care. Be sure to stay tuned for more daily Division 2 content. This is Shadow Gaming signing off. I will see you in the next video. Take care, agents.